YouTube video, and in the YouTube video, I went over what I consider to be the equitable haircut strategy. If you were watching that YouTube video, then please, when you come up, I only want requests from those that have actually watched the video and want to talk that one topic only. We don't want to go off topic, and we just want to get to the feedback from those that have watched the video, and those that want to have some input and share some thoughts around that. If it touches into a subject that we cover in other videos, then I'll try and divert that over. What I'm going to do quickly before we jump in is please put your hand up now if you've got anything you would like to discuss around doing that initial distribution, so everyone can just understand how much funds they have, and whether they're entitlement to them, and how we get there as fast as possible, given some of the challenges. All right, so Azad, are you co-host now? If you could accept co-host.
There we go. I think you've accepted co-host. There's a bit of a...
Are you there, Azad? We can't hear you, Azad. There we go. I think you've accepted co-host, and there's a bit of a lag.
Yeah, can you hear me?
Excellent. Are we recording for YouTube?
Yes, we are.
Excellent. Okay. So let's bring some people up. So we're going to do exactly 1 hour. What are we, about 10 minutes past now?
It's 5 minutes past.
Okay, so we're going to do 1 hour strict. I'm stopping at exactly 1 hour from now. Let's bring the first person up and stay on topic.
Okay, let's start with crypto investor.
Hi, thank you. Thanks, Simon.
Oh, you've got a really bad line. It's really crackly.
Okay. Is it better?
Oh, that's better.
Okay, sorry. So the question is, when burning the cell, one, where's the money, or where's the money coming from to pay for burning all that? And two, if you're burning the whole treasury, does the company itself get anything? I mean, I understand that all the people who own cell in the app would get compensation, but what about the treasury? Thank you.
Yeah, so the cell token, the cell token treasury disappears. Those that those that own cell token outside the app can go trade, do whatever they want, knowing that nothing's going to be dumped onto them. And we know exactly how many Bitcoin we have and how many ETH we have. We know what the price is at the point of the bankruptcy, and everybody gets treated equally, and they get their pro rata share of Bitcoin and ETH, whether they had sell or whether they didn't. Any comment, or next person to bring up?
I'm good, thank you.
Good afternoon.
Okay, let's bring up Lawrence.
Yeah, Simon, great job breaking it down. ETH and Bitcoin would be outstanding. We understand how simplifying the process and keeping all the regulation for anything that's other is agreeable. One point you haven't touched on, which I see a lot of people questioning, is the cryptocurrency tied up in the loan program.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'll be covering that in future videos once we've got the whole thing. And so the challenge that you brought up is a very valid challenge, is that you have a bunch of people that would then have under-collateralized loans, potentially, which, if not addressed correctly, would lead to the complete financial disaster of some of those people. So that is a topic that will 100% has to be addressed. And so once we've gone through future videos, we can cover that as a future topic, which is how to ensure that those loans are collateralized without causing a major issue and ruining the life of those that took out their loans. But initially, they would be collateralized by the Bitcoin and ETH and whatever is in the investment account, and then a process for making sure that we can get those collateralized if there is a future home for those loans.
Understood. Thank you.
Thank you, Lawrence. Let's bring on Al.
Hi guys, thanks for taking my question. Yeah, just watched the video. Thought it was nice, compact, easy to understand. So my question is on the subject of the equitable distribution and how that would work. And I know this wasn't touched on, maybe for good reason, but because it's on the subject of being equitable. How would you treat, and this is more to do with the voting process, if you have a massive long tail of small accounts that maybe make up 90%, sorry, make up maybe 10% of the what's in the estate, and then the top 10% maybe account for 90% of the value, is because I've heard talk of maybe paying out smaller accounts, but wouldn't that shift you away from the equitable strategy? So I know there's 2 votes we need to win. That's what I'm asking.
Yeah, it's a really good question, and I think it's a really important tweak on top of this initial thing, which is then once we're all in alignment on this, there will be some people that are willing to receive more of the assets in the whole, and others that want to receive less. There will be some that can't, some that can. There'll be some that want to receive yield, and some that need collateral. And so all we need after that is a way of matching up those different things. And one of those is what you said. Those that have a very small account versus those that have a very large account, there could be, with all the numbers, and people are crunching the numbers right now, there could be some really interesting tweaks that I think everyone should explore. Simplicity is really important, but if we actually have a platform that complies with both securities laws and lending laws, then you can do these matching strategies and kind of have the types of marketplaces, or just all figured out initially. I think it's a really important point. So what I'd suggest everyone does is really balance optionality with simplicity. That's the challenge. Keep it simple, but at the same time, the more optionality, the more complex it gets, the more harder it is to administer. And those are the types of things. But I think it's a really good point.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Next speaker is Mark.
Good afternoon, Simon. Thank you, as always, for your time and hosting the space. I am looking at the latest court pleadings, and I want to see if you had a chance to look at the latest pleadings with that list of assets that comes out to $10.7 billion. And I want to get your thoughts on that and if you're aware of that.
I haven't actually had a chance to look. I was stacked all day today. So help me understand what the 10.7 billion is.
Sure. Okay. So it's a list of all the assets that they own between Celsius X, their DeFi,
Gotcha.
Fireblocks, staking, Celsius Mining LLC, Celsius KeyFi LLC, undeployed stablecoins, and there's a breakdown of each one, and it comes out to $10.7 billion. And it was just disclosed yesterday.
Awesome. Yeah. So I did see that one. I just didn't know if something else had come out today. So let's divert that to the filling the hole topic, because that would be a key component of how you fill the hole. And so if you think about the equitable distribution, once we know that everyone owns their money in custody, it's neutral, it's Bitcoin and ETH. They know what the size of their haircut is. Then it's a question of what do you put in the investment account in order to fill the hole. So I'd divert that to another video if you don't mind.
Sure, I appreciate it. And then one other aspect, I see Gus is in this room. I'm an attorney, but Gus is an attorney that specializes in bankruptcy law, and I wanted to see what his thoughts were, and we can talk about that later regarding insider clawbacks, because that's another huge chunk of money, and insider clawbacks are different than retail, so we can put that on the back burner, but it looks like there's a lot of cash on hand to fill this hole than we originally thought. So
yeah, I don't think it's cash, it's assets.
Assets,
yeah.
yes. But those were my 2 latest, basically, findings that were filed with Stretto and on the docket. So just wanted to see if you were aware of those, and I wanted Thank you again for your time. I'm going to drop off now, and I'll be
Okay,
listening.
pleasure. And I'm going to do a video just on clawback. So as you quite rightly pointed out, there's some major institutional clawbacks, there's some retail clawbacks, and there's insider clawbacks. And so we can debate that one out on that topic. But I want to stay on to the equitable initial distribution.
Sounds good. Thank you, Simon, for letting me speak.
Thank you, Mark. Next speaker is Tom.
Yeah, thanks, Simon. With regard to the data you're seeing from Celsius, do you believe you have a clear view of all the cryptocurrencies that are in possession and how many were lost? I understand there's a fair amount of Bitcoin that are just gone. I'm not seeing a good accounting from that. You have any direction for me?
Yeah, I can only talk about public information, and there are coin reports. And in those coin reports, you can find a breakdown, but then you get into the other. But there is a lot of data, and if anyone that's crunching the numbers on crunching the data, I think that's a community initiative that everyone should work together, put together a special space on how to actually consolidate all of the publicly available information. You'll probably notice that we've all been doxxed. So at the moment, I'm getting tweeted left, right, and center from people and Bitcoin maxis that are mocking me for having my money 10 million on Celsius that used to be tens of millions before the crash. But that of it, we are here, we are there, and that information is now available for everyone. It's even that web page. I noticed that it's even indexing it in Google. So if people put their name in Google, it's starting to index what their Celsius claim is. Really big problem. Everyone tried to fight for that in the court. But the data is really starting to come through. And so that's got access to data. I think the ad hoc groups are doing a fantastic. So the crypto loans, who's got his hand up right now, has been consolidating a lot of the loan data in what's publicly available, the earn groups, and all the different groups. And there's Bitshank is putting together a steering committee to try and coordinate people. And so I think you'll be able to find within the community who's putting together that data. And if we've got some more data analysts in the community, please offer your support. People need the data from the public information. And if you're a coder or a whiz kid with a spreadsheet or a data analyst, please volunteer your services to the community. We need you.
Okay, thanks, Tom. Next speaker is Celsius Loans.
Hey, thanks, Simon. Yeah, there's a Twitter guy named Keith who he collated all of the borrower data for us. I know you hit on it, but there's about right now 800 million in collateral. The overwhelming majority of that is Bitcoin and ETH. There's about 12,000 borrowers across 23,000 loans, and they owe a principal and combined interest amount of $411 million. The only point of consideration in terms of an equitable haircut, just for your consideration for a new co-plan and just for the group's consideration, I'm sure there'll be follow-on AMAs, but just in terms of what an equitable haircut looks like towards loans, obviously they have our collateral, but we owe the debtor's estate money. So I just wanted to talk about if there's discussions of haircutting collateral, that can put some of the top 50 borrowers potentially underwater, which has catastrophic tax implications and could potentially ruin a very easy, profitable revenue stream. Obviously, we need to be fair. We need to have loans and borrowers want to pull their own weight and be part of a new co-reorg. I just say for your consideration, just think about extending out maturity dates for 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 years, and we can model the math to have readjusted interest rates or potential recollateralization of loans in a new co where borrowers are sending in more Bitcoin, sending in more ETH to recollateralize those loans and having realistic interest rates, 3%, 5%, etc. Some of these top borrowers that have 1,000 Bitcoin collateral, we're currently posting 10% interest. So just before we talk about the equitable haircuts and all that, which is extremely important that we're fair across the board, we just do it in such a way that we preserve profitable revenue streams in the future. Thanks for the time.
Yeah, no worries. I got something I want to ask you as well. I just want to I want you to communicate to anyone that's listening the disastrous consequences on people's lives if this ends up in chapter 7, or an equitable distribution where all the loans end up under collateralized, and the importance of filling that. And I think, for example, I own 10 million worth of crypto, and while I want it back, as long as it's held in custody, if I'm confident that there is a new home for it and I'm sufficiently incentivized, then I'd be more than happy to receive a bit of yield for lending my collateral to someone that needs that collateral if there's a negotiation and a real easy way of fixing that one. And so what I want you to do is, for anyone that's listening that doesn't understand the pain and suffering that some people would go through if they're in these extreme circumstances where they have a loan, and the impact it would have on their life if this gets liquidated in chapter 7, just please help any regulator, any person that's listening, the impact it has as the representative of the crypto loans group.
Yeah, thanks, Simon. So without pointing any fingers, we're in this position because of leadership, management, and irresponsible risk management principles. Crypto retail lending is a very nascent industry that is an industry of banking and lending in the future. A user posts for up to 4x collateral, and in exchange, they're able to use USD fiat. That creates a secured lending industry, and the catastrophic implications that you're talking about is that if a loan gets liquidated, there's massive tax consequences for that. And in addition, this is a situation where we have 800 million in collateral, 400 million in principal. If we were not to solve this, if regulators are going to say we're going to chapter 7, basically that 800 million in collateral is going to get subtracted with the 400 million principal, and then there's that potential haircut. That has across the industry catastrophic tax implications, not only for all 12,000 borrowers, but it's going to set an industry that is on the verge of taking off. It's going to set it back up to a decade. So I just ask for regulators that are listening to please consider a innovative solution for the lending industry to be able for these borrowers to continue their loans. What we view is that collateral is not property of the estate, that collateral is going to hopefully be part of a new company and its reorganization. And there's 12,000 borrowers that are standing by, ready to pay off their principal, ready to continue paying interest, and even ready to recollateralize those loans so that collateral is protected, it's respected, and we're under a regulated, compliant, legal banking operation. Thank you.
Okay, great. So we'll move on. But anyone discussing an equitable, haircut strategy really needs to consider what happens with those that are, that have those loans. That needs to be considered in the process. Thank you.
Okay, next speaker, let's bring on Kirk.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yep.
Great. Yeah, no, I've been following you since day one, since all this shitstorm happened, but thank you for everything you've done for us. And hopefully my question's simple. Yeah, I would just like to know, I just hold Bitcoin in the Earn app part of Celsius. And I just wanted to know, going forward with being simplified into Bitcoin and ETH, if that I'm going to have a mix of those two, or do I have the choice of just to have Bitcoin?
Yeah, I think we have to negotiate on this. Now, here's the thing. There's a bunch of Bitcoin maxis. That's the vast majority of the funds on Celsius. And there's a bunch of people that love ETH and hate Bitcoin. We have to just negotiate. We can't, we have to just accept that half and half, or close to half and half. And if you hate ETH, then go, when you've got your money, go out and buy some Bitcoin. And if you hate Bitcoin, then go out and buy some ETH. And if you hate all of those, then go out and buy some Matic or Cardano or XRP or whatever you want to buy. But initially, we just got to get this shit politically neutral, because we've got to get the vote and get through this
Okay.
process. And so
Okay.
yeah, I don't think, the more, I appreciate optionality, but if I were putting together a plan on this, then one of the real considerations would be that if you give people too many options, then the complexity could kill the whole process.
Okay. And the coins that are going to be given back to us once we're out of Chapter 11, or when we get that initial half, let's say 50% back, is that going to be within the coins that we have, or is that going to be
No, Bitcoin and ETH. So
okay?
you receive Bitcoin and ETH because they're politically neutral, security law neutral, and all the things that I talked about,
Okay.
and crypto neutral, and they're likely to go wherever the crypto market goes without much alpha deviation from the key underlying market.
Okay. And
then whatever you want, you go out and buy. Once you've got them in custody and you're ready to withdraw them, you go do what you need to do.
Okay. And I have a question about taxes, but that might be for another segment. Yeah.
Yeah, tax is a big consideration, so we'll cover that on when we get to the tax segment.
All right, great. Well, thank you for everything you've been doing, and I look forward to hear about it more. So,
thank you.
Okay, next speaker is Notorious. Can you hear us?
Yeah, thanks for putting out that video. I just watched it. So I just had a question there about when you were talking about converting all the assets and the Sol token into Bitcoin and Ethereum. I was wondering, well, that is my question really, is would the Sol token also be converted into Bitcoin and Ethereum, or would that be converted into equity?
No, so Bitcoin and ETH, Sol token would be sent to the burn address, and you would have a pro rata share on your claim of Bitcoin and ETH. So there is only so many, once everything's in Bitcoin and ETH, everybody knows how much Bitcoin and ETH there are. You have a pro rata claim on that, whatever asset you own. And that is based upon the price at bankruptcy, which is the rules of the bankruptcy code. So Sol token was approximately 74 cents or something like that. Don't quote me. But that was all snapshotted, and it's what they've utilized in order to put together your dollar claim at the moment, I believe. So you just have a ratio of how much you're entitled to based upon that. And then the Bitcoin and ETH is just spread across everybody and shared across everybody.
Okay, yeah, that sounds fine to me. And thank you for everything you're doing. I feel like this is actually going somewhere really positive now. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker is John Q.
Hey, thanks for the opportunity to speak. Thank you, Simon, for all you're doing. I'm a big fan of the philosophy of Occam's razor, so I totally agree with your simplicity on this as far as everything going to Bitcoin and Ethereum. My question to the video, I believe, is you had sent a tweet out, I think it was last week, regarding that stablecoins may be treated differently. So how would stablecoins be used in this plan?
Yeah, I think there's a really good case for people to say, let's add a third, stable coins. If it were my way, I'd just do it Bitcoin and ETH. Just the reason for that is because it feels like a low in the market. It may not be, but I don't think anyone wants locked in. The reason no one wants dollars here is because they don't want the price locked in down here. And so if we use stables, then you're locking in a bunch of it down here. Now, I know that doesn't feel like a decision for us to make, and you might want to do one third, one third, one third. I think it's a genuine debate. But if I were voting, I'd look for 50% Bitcoin, 50% ETH, rather than stables. The other danger of the stables that I'd want to avoid is if you give the bankruptcy, if we all vote that we want to be crypto long, and then you put dollars in there, my fear is that they just go to, let's just dollarize everything. So I personally, dollarizing everything here is like chapter 7, but a chapter 11, trying to make the most of it. I think it's disaster for recovery. Yeah.
Okay, so your tweet said something about stablecoins possibly being stablecoin holders possibly being treated as secured creditors. Did I read that correctly?
No, not me. That's someone's argument. I would rather go for Equitable and just forget about these arguments about whether stablecoins are secured. I think it's just someone. I think it's people pushing their own self-interest, and we're going to end up in a debate. We're going to end up with a mess, and we're going to end up in chapter 7 if everyone pushes their own self-interest. And whether it's stablecoin, look, you just got to look at the substance. Nobody wanted to be in no one wanted to be in custody. In fact, if you remember it at the time, everybody was horrified that Celsius took them out of earn and put them into custody, and everyone was complaining about being there. I had to even create a video at the time. It was the first time I created a video covering Celsius on the regulatory crackdown. You can see it on my YouTube channel. That is, but now everyone's using that to their advantage. It's a bit like and I'm not judging it. That's the thing I'm not doing. I'm not judging it. I'm just saying, if we want to get out, let's get as equitable as possible. The special interest groups are causing us to fight against each other, push agendas, and if we can't unify, we're going to end up with the worst result. So I'm trying to counter prisoner's dilemma here, where we all end up with the worst result because we're all pushing our own self-interest.
Wonderful. Simon, one quick thing, if I could, I was wondering if I could make a comment since, like you, I don't know if you've ever been doxxed before. I personally haven't. I come from a tech background as a former retired white hat. Anybody listening, I highly recommend it's a good time to go through your security protocols and make sure that you've got everything turned on, because we know the attacks are going to come. And one thing that often people forget about is they forget about securing their email addresses. And that's one of the biggest breaches available. So if you don't have some kind of two-factor authentication turned on your email addresses as well, then you're very vulnerable to an attack. So good time to go through. Even I did it myself. I went through my wife's and I's security and double-checked everything, looked at everything, and just made sure that we're going to be okay. Barring a $5 wrench attack, which, hopefully that kind of stuff doesn't happen. But that's it today. Thank you for your time. I appreciate it.
Thank you so much for going off topic. That was definitely something worth going off topic for. Please, people, be concerned about your security. It's not good. 2FA on everything, unique passwords on everything. If you've got funds on exchanges, it's probably a good time to get them in cold storage and get that hardware wallet. Please, password managers. Really, you're not going to survive in the future if you don't figure out the security now. And there are going to be people that are going to try and compromise the fact that people know this data. So it's completely off topic, but something that was probably essential to go off topic for. Thank you so much for bringing that up.
Thank you. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, John. Next speaker is Organic Colors.
Yeah, thanks. So the first thing is, as Simon mentioned, so the BitShacks, community-led kind of a plan. We have a space at 4 o'clock, 30 minutes from now, which is on the same topic. So I would request Simon to join as well, because we will talk about the same thing, and then we might have others present their plan as well. And then we're also going to limit that to probably an hour or 1.5 hours. Like basically, it's not going to go endlessly. That was the first thing, and the second thing.
Just before that, I won't be able to make that, but I think it's useful to have a conversation where I don't dominate the conversation. So you all have that on your own without me, because you need to share your ideas and your thoughts.
Yeah, I think it has to be collaborative, right? I mean, so I don't think that it's going to be one-sided or something, but of course it'll be good if you could listen to that as well. And another thing is, Simon, I think you alluded that the equity could be kind of distributed to probably the 10% of the users, right, which have probably more than 10K on the platform, and the ones with lower below 10K could be just probably either just made whole or whatsoever, right? And one other thing that I've recently learned is that maybe not everybody above 10K will be happy with that, right? Because they might see it as non-equal kind of a distribution there.
Agreed.
So that is something that you just need to kind of think around, or maybe give them an option. And if we give them an option, then again it becomes complicated. So we just have to think about that.
Yeah, optionality is really complicated with this many users and this much money. Maybe it's not. And if someone can come up with non-complicated ways of executing. But yeah, the reality is you're making an assumption, which is that everyone below 10K thinks in a certain way. Or remember, there could be really wealthy people that don't need that money. But we can't just assume if someone's got a lower account balance that they're not wealthy, for example. That's unfortunately not an assumption we can make. However, yeah, there's pros and cons to all of this. And Equitable, I think, is the easiest, but it also comes with its challenges. So we just got to get that right, and think about execution risk when deciding how you'd want things as well, because the risk of getting all this wrong and messing up the execution risk. I mean, even just in releasing the data, I've seen people that have wrong balances, and they're wondering where someone else is, and and various other things. So execution risk is really important, and simplicity is where we get good execution.
Thank you. Next speaker is Degan.
Hi, Simon. So I was wondering, I don't believe I fully understand how this haircut will be equitable for people with loans and without loans, because there's people who has like a great amount in Celsius that did not take loans, and there's people who took loans, they at least had some liquidity. So how's that going to work?
Yeah, so initially, treat everyone equally is what I would do. And then a separate topic is how to treat the collateral behind the loans, which would be a separate topic. Because you can't say all of those with loans do have the collateral and all of those that don't, because that takes away the principle of equality. So then a separate topic is what do you do with that hole that when people that have loans need to be fully collateralized, and that's a separate topic.
But it seems to me that the people who did not take loans are going to get screwed the most, right? Because
no, everyone's treated equally, and then if it just happens that you also have a loan, a separate topic is what's backing up the collateral on that loan. Everyone has a haircut, everyone has Bitcoin, everyone has ETH, and then everyone has something that fills the hole. Everyone's treated equally, and then you need a mechanism for putting together, those that because of loans can't, swapping assets, whatever it is. There's lots of different ideas and strategies, but everyone initially is treated equitable. Their funds are in the custody account, and before it opens, you got to figure out what you're going to do with all those that are under collateralized.
So it would be the case that even if the person puts the collateral, they would still get a haircut.
We have $6.9 billion of funds right now. those are converted into just Bitcoin and ETH. And everybody knows that they should have a balance on their account. Some of it was used for collateral, some of it was used for earn, and some of it was just sat there in custody. Treat everybody the same, give them their pro rata share of Bitcoin and ETH, and then we figure out what problem does that create. Well, it creates a problem of how do we fill the hole, and then another problem of what do we do with those that would end up having their loan liquidated as a result of being under collateralized. And then you just think about a separate topic, how to fill the hole. And once you solve that, what do you do with collateral?
So my second question is, I'm not really understanding this, but so there's a proposal to make everyone has under 10K whole. Is that it?
Yeah, that's someone's suggestion. And that would be an interesting thing to figure out how you would execute that as part of this subject. So you'd essentially have one proposal is that everyone that's under 10K gets made whole, which would mean that everyone that has over 10K has a larger haircut. So it violates the principle of Equitable. And so, a kind of a pro and con analysis and how that would be executed is the thought process there.
Okay, just wanted to say that I want to be vocal about this. I'm totally against this. Like, just because you have under 10K, it doesn't mean that you're, I don't know,
I agree.
Poor than the other person. I mean, that's just ridiculous. Everyone is in the same situation. Everyone should get the same haircut. With loans, without loans, I don't care, man. It's, this is, for me, it's absurd.
Yeah.
Sorry.
So this is the situation that I'd like to avoid, which is people feeling that someone else benefited or they feel socially profiled as a result of that type of thing. So Equitable takes away all the debates, and this is why I'm saying if we could just have as the milestone that everyone gets treated fairly. No one fights against being treated fairly. Everyone fights against feeling that they were treated in an unfair way. And so there's 300 to 600,000 people we're dealing with here. Whatever decision you make, someone's going to feel like they're treated unfairly. So the closer you can get to Equitable, and if you deviate from that, then it has to be for a really, really, really good reason. Is where I'd encourage people to think when they're thinking about. And remember, we all have to compromise here. No one's happy with the situation. And yeah, those types of generalizations are useful and also quite discriminatory at the same time. So let's try and get Equitable is where I would try and steer it, but I understand why you'd go in different directions too.
Okay, thank you for that. Next speaker is JP Morons.
Hey guys, can you hear me?
We can
hear.
Hey Simon, I was just wondering, now that the details of the balances held by the creditors has come out, and I saw like around 90% of them have account balances of less than $10,000. I was wondering, what's your strategy about balances that have, the dust or like crypto dust or like this? These are basically like abandoned accounts, or what's the strategy to deal with this? Because I think this is like skewing the data towards accounts that have less than $10,000. Thank you.
Yeah, clearly there's going to be a minimum amount, and what that minimum amount is something that we need to be figured out in a recovery plan. Because if someone's got less than $10 or $1 because they couldn't withdraw the full amount, and but they're still on their account, I think clearly the point that all of this has made is there's going to be, how do you treat people below a certain amount? And some people are saying, well, let's go all the way up to 10,000 because they believe that for their reasons. So question those reasons. And you given a reason, which is, well, those with dust are skewing the data. So there has to be a number in any recovery plan, and debate the assumptions behind that number.
Okay, thank you. Next speaker is Mark.
Yeah, hi, Simon. It's a couple of questions. The first one is, I suppose it is rooted in tax, which I know you said we'd speak about later. But if your account mainly consisted of Bitcoin and Ethereum, and you were prepared to go long, it's kind of, the actual sort of, selling all the coins to Bitcoin and Ethereum from a sort of tax perspective, might look like sort of, you've got transactions on your account. Whereas if you were just only holding those and you were prepared to just sort of, wait and go long, I wonder if there's some way, if you're only holding those already, to sort of not look like you've, transacted through the process. Does that make sense?
Makes perfect sense, and it's exactly the issue. So let's cover that in the tax one with the tax experts, because the treatment of it is important. Whether Celsius owns it or you own it is important, and the history of the company, whether it was the UK co or the US co. These are important issues. Let's get the tax experts to discuss them so that you've got the information. And there may even be exemptions in these types of processes. So if it was treated that you got scammed, for example, that might be treated differently than if this was just a legitimate operation that went down. So these are actually real issues, because if you look at, for example, the Madoff case, it was treated differently for tax versus another case like MF Global. If the institution was regulated, it can be treated differently. If it was a security, it has different tax implications. So there's a combination between the legal experts and the tax experts, and if we can just get that information out there, then I'm sure we can find an equitable solution that addresses the concerns. But there are definitely tax concerns, tax considerations, and this may not be what we want. But let's get the information out there so we can figure out the best optimization in any plan.
Next speaker is Opinari.
Yes, good evening. You hear me?
Hello. Yeah, we
Yeah.
can.
Okay, fine. Yeah, I want to clarify this initial distribution and the context in this first step where we are. So this proposal is to convert, following an OTC auction, all the earn and loans account into ETH and BTC into a custody account. All the other coins will be also converted to ETH and BTC, right? So this is the
Exactly, with
first.
the exception of
Okay, I want everyone to clearly understand what is this proposal. So this is considering a winning auction. So all the loans and earn account converted to a mix of ETH and BTC to be negotiated. Okay, all the altcoins converted to ETH and BTC as well. This is a custody account.
Not the loans, the collateral.
Only the collateral. Okay, good. Then on the other side, we have the equity side. Okay, so this is the investment account part from your video. So here it's only regarding the sell token, which is a problem and a part of
nothing to do with sell token.
Nothing to do with. Can you clarify that?
Asking the question, because if you had the question, others will.
Please.
Sell token is part of the equitable distribution. Sell token in this proposal is every sell token in the app and in Treasury is burnt. So then those that have sell token outside the app, they continue with the current supply, and the regulatory issue moves over to the exchanges rather than Chapter 11.
Mm-hmm.
And so they have a price which gives them a pro rata share of all the Bitcoin and ETH, just as everyone else.
A claim.
A claim, yes.
And we are talking only about the sell in app.
Selling app only. It can't be shared with non-creditors.
Mm-hmm.
That would violate the bankruptcy code. We can't use another price because the bankruptcy code says you have to use the price at point of bankruptcy. So we've got all the data. We don't need to debate. Everything else is asking for law reform of the bankruptcy code. We're not going for law reform. We're trying to get out of Chapter 11.
No, that's for sure. And what about the equity side in this initial distribution? Who
Okay,
gets equity?
so then we're on to the
It-
next topic,
uh,
which is
uh, this is
everybody
the
has
next topic. Okay.
everybody has an investment account, and that investment account is designed to try and fill the hole for everybody, which is a different topic. We'll do a whole session on filling the hole.
We'll see that later. And my last point was about illiquid assets. I think you mentioned that. If we buy all the assets in the auction, we are talking about the coins which are held. Okay, nice. What are the illiquid assets?
Again, fill the whole subject, but there's a bunch of illiquid assets like a Bitcoin mining company, TK8, a bunch of claims on future revenues, a bunch of private equity investments. These are all illiquid assets. It's not tokens, it's not cryptocurrencies, it's not the things that you deposited when you logged into your account.
Thank you. Next speaker is Johan, and we have just under 12 minutes.
Hello, everybody. Can you hear me?
Yep, loud and clear.
All right. So I would like to return to that equitable distribution, that already what I've heard so far is not going to be very equitable anymore because there will be so many exceptions. That's one thing. The other
Or just
thing
don't
is,
have any exceptions. People are proposing exceptions. So you
yeah,
might
but
take the stance, none of them.
I'm just saying that it seems impossible to reach what you're talking about. The other thing is that it's still extremely unclear what assets are the estate's assets and what are not. Present, there is this ongoing debate about the custody. There is definitely a question about who owns the collateral. In my view, the only thing that is part of the estate is the principal and any unpaid interest, and there can be discussion on haircut on that side, but there could never be a discussion on haircut on the actual collateral because it's not part of the estate.
Again, you're into the examiner's debate. The examiner is going to say, was this treated separately in principle? And it's a legal argument. Here's what I'm trying to say. If you want Celsius and Kirkland to win, then we all argue, and then they're going to say custody is yours, and then everyone else is owned by us, and we have full authority to do whatever we want with it. And then they win, and then we have to sign into a claim in order to settle. And that's what they want, divide and conquer, right? If we want to win, we come to an equitable solution. We take all the ad hoc groups, we bang their heads together, and we say, get in a room and figure out, how we can do this with equality. And then we can decide, for tax reasons, is it better that Celsius owns the assets or we own the assets? But eventually, we want them to be our assets in custody. And so what this proposal is an equitable way of taking all the things that Celsius are claiming are theirs and making them yours. And that's moving them into owned by Celsius into owned by you, which is custody. And if we don't bang our heads together and figure out what solution we want, then the courts, the examiners go into rule. And Celsius and Kirkland want to give custody their fund, and prisoner's dilemma, and the worst result for the masses. But we might want it in the end, once we understand, some of the tax consequences, that we do want Celsius to own it. And so if we can just figure out what we want in a creditor-led recovery plan, by understanding these challenges, then we can decide what result we want rather than them determining what we want in order for them to win.
Thank you. Let's bring on I Am Vengeance.
Hi, Simon. Can you hear me okay?
Yep, we can hear you.
All right. Okay. So I have a quick question about the cell token. So you mentioned that the cell token will be sent it to the burn address, and so basically it is sailing. So so when you are sailing that much amount of a cell token,
You're not selling it, you're sending it to the burn address. It disappears.
Okay. So for example, let's say if we're sending it now and it's $1, So how much amount we can get back? It's $1. It's less than $1.
You get nothing. What you do, you already know what the price of Cell token was at the point of bankruptcy. Someone fact checked me, but I think it was 75 cents or 74 cents or something like that. That's already known. That is your pro rata claim. Take the number of Cell tokens you have in the app and times it by that price. That's your claim. Then all those tokens, rather than you receiving a bunch of tokens in the future, it flooding the market and it being worth zero, and you receiving your tokens that could then later be worth zero, and then regulators say, oh, it's an unregistered security, let's put this, and then we debate and we don't get out of Chapter 11, and then they start thinking about, well, if Celsius, the company, owns a bunch of tokens, when are they going to dump them on the market? Does that violate securities laws, insider trading? What's the result of this criminal investigation? And in 2 years' time, we're going to figure out what insider trading happened. We've got to take that out of Chapter 11. The only thing that's going to keep us there is this silly debate. So let's just give everyone what they deserve equally, treat everybody equally, and everybody, there will be a bunch of Bitcoin, a bunch of ETH, and everybody that had Cell token in the app should be treated fairly, should get their claim on that Bitcoin and ETH, and we take the issue out of here and leave it over the exchanges.
Okay, so
oops, sorry, we seem to have lost. Let's move to Daylong.
Hi, good afternoon. Good
You've
afternoon.
got 5 minutes, by the way.
Okay, very quickly, Simon. I've talked to you a couple times on these things. You know, I'm in your corner. I'm a little confused. Please tell me why I'm wrong. It seems to me that if Abra or Salt went ahead and bought the loan book dollar for dollar as a creditor with most of my assets collateralized, that would obviously be a good thing. But as a Christ-fearing person, I also wanted, a solution that helps everybody, because we're all human beings, and I try to be a good person, as you clearly do as well. If we do your plan, am I wrong? And I hope I am. Are you liquidating my loans? Because the problem with that is
we're initially giving you a different form of collateral. It's Bitcoin, ETH, and something else.
Okay, so the loans aren't liquidated in your plan.
No loans are liquidated.
The reason why that's such a problem, as I've said before, and I just want to make sure we're on the same page of music, and I'm a big fan of yours, don't misunderstand me, is that if I have a couple of dozen Bitcoins, or many dozens of Bitcoins, collateralized at, say, right now it's maybe a little bit over 2 to 1, even though I was much more conservative when I took them, and I get a 50% haircut, that means half of the loans are liquidated, and the tax consequences of the capital gains, because I'm an early adopter, i.e. in the thousands and the hundreds, not the tens of thousands, I'm at zero. So it's like hard. It would be very hard to support a plan that leaves me with nothing. Does that make sense, sir?
Yeah, and if I were you, I would not support any plan that did that to me. And that's definitely not what we can do in order to get a plan that gets 50% of people's votes and 2/3 of the value of the votes. So initially, it's what is everyone's collateral? Let's just make it equal. Everybody's balance is equal, whether they're in custody, whether they're in earn, whether it's their collateral, whether they're in withhold. Everybody has their equal distribution, and it consists of being made up with some kind of other asset, and then we figure out how to ensure that those loans don't get liquidated, which would be a topic of another thing.
Fantastic.
But yeah, it's definitely not get you liquidated. That's why I was trying to get Celsius or crypto loans are to help everyone appreciate the incredibly horrible impact that could have on some people's lives.
Cascading detriment. That's what I call it. It'll cascade. It's almost like watching. Unfortunately, I was right there too, watching the South Tower cascading down.
Yeah, it's a mortgage-backed security and a credit default swap in Lehman Brothers in 2007 that requires a bailout with no central bank. Let's not go there.
Yes, great. Thank you, Simon. We really appreciate everything you're doing, sir. Thank you.
Okay, I think we got room for one more question. And
remember, we started 5 minutes late. Is that?
All right. Okay. Cool. I remember now. Okay, let's bring on Neo.
Okay, thank you. Simon, just follow up on the last two questions regarding loans. So you're proposing a haircut on earned custody and collateral, but are you also adding a haircut on the loan amount? Because why would someone who has a loan, agrees to a haircut on the collateral and not having a haircut on the loan amount?
Yeah, because we're not going to haircut in the end. We're just going to replace it with another asset and a way of getting what you need in your collateral. So we're not, initially, we're just talking about equitable distribution. And then what does that collateral actually become? So at the moment, you've got a 50%, let's say, for example, on crypto assets. Then what is the other 50%?
I'm sorry to interrupt. Let's make the numbers so everybody can understand. Let's say you have a loan of 10,000 USDC, right? And you put in 20,000 BTC. Because it was maybe 3-to-1 or 4-to-1, but at this point it's 1.5 or even 2, right? So let's say you have 10,000 sitting in your bank account that you are ready to pay off before the bankruptcy. And you have it in your bank, $10,000 or USDC or whatever. And then you have 15 or 20,000 worth of BTC collateral, okay? So with that in mind, how will your formula work?
Yeah, exactly. Thank you so much. I should put more numbers and examples. I think that's really good feedback. So in this case, you would have a $10,000 loan. You would have $10,000 of Bitcoin and ETH, and you would have $10,000 of an illiquid asset with a strategy of how to handle that illiquid asset.
Illiquid asset.
Yeah, because we're into the filling the hole conversation now, and I'm proposing
okay.
fill the hole with an illiquid asset.
Oh, okay. So the 10,000 will be converted to BTC or ETH. If you don't have BTC or ETH, there may be tax consequences because the conversion is a taxable event. I know there's going to be a different space for that. I'll be interested to see if the Chapter 11 has some exceptions to that. Now, the other, the haircut amount, that's what's going to be equitable, right? So it's a new call. It's going to become in equity.
Yeah, let's not cover it. Let's just say at the moment you will have 50% of your value, and I'm just using 50%. It may not be the final number, but 50% of your value in Bitcoin and ETH, and 50% in something else.
Got it. Okay. Now it's clear to me. Thank you so much, Simon. That makes more sense.
Yeah, thanks for clarifying, because I guarantee you, if you were thinking like that, others were too.
Yeah, because you're saying you're going to get a haircut on your collateral and you still have to pay the loan. I mean, that doesn't make sense, right?
Exactly.
Thank you, Neo. Next speaker is Mary.
Hey, Simon. Is it fair to say that what it looks like we're trying to implement with just giving Bitcoin and ETH at this point combined with equity is similar to what you initially wanted to do because it was not well received by the previous management, possibly because it didn't involve the cell token, is why you could not get support for it, and now we're revisiting what your initial vision was in June?
No, so I presented to Celsius prior to Chapter 11 the Bitfinex recovery plan with a few tweaks. There's no way that I would have come up with all of this without spending 4 months of the community, thousands of hours listening to everyone's problems. Spending a load of money on legal fees, a load of money on tax professionals, a load of money on investment bankers, structurers, financiers. And listening to the incredible amount of crowdsourced intelligence that's come from all these different groups thinking in different ways. And what I've tried to do is put together a starting point that tries to incorporate what I've listened to after probably spending 1,000 hours in different places and spaces in the last in the last 4 months. And yeah, so the original, what I proposed was a version of this, but no way as much detail because I just didn't know enough to present it in the level of detail.
Okay, thank you for your time.
Thank you. I think we're going to do one more.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, let's bring in Quant 21.
Hey, can you guys hear me?
Yep.
I can.
Okay. Just wanted to kind of get an assessment. A couple guys in my meetup group got tied up in this flimflammery. So, what are the chances? Are say the UCC and the examiner they find some criminal mischief or they find some illegal activity? Would that just lead to an automatic liquidation?
Yeah, let's take that as the last question, and it's slightly off topic.
Okay, I'm sorry if I took it off topic. My apologies. I was just sorry about that.
Yeah, no worries. It's a good place to end. Look, we can't prevent any of those things. If there's criminality, the criminality's been done. All we can do is be as organized as possible, tell the UCC what we want, help people appreciate that other activities that may or may not be criminal should not impact everybody's lives. We're in this together. We have solutions. As a community, we can get ourselves out of our own shit. We're in this shit. We've got enough people, brain power, intelligence, resources, technology, lawyers and accountants and desire and financial skin in the game. We're all here because we got skin in the game. And so we have to solve our own problem. And there's 3 different ways to solve it. Either Celsius puts together a recovery plan. 4 months later, they still haven't got one. So they've taken us to bid. So now we need to get inside that bid process and make sure that we have, if someone wins the bid, it implements the recovery plan. Or if they give us something we don't want in that bid process, then we say no and we implement our own recovery plan with the UCC or however it's going to work. In the meantime, every month that this goes deeper into a criminal investigation, we're risking the worst result, which is Chapter 7. And Chapter 7, the legal system needs to understand that leads to homelessness. I've seen and I've witnessed people that felt suicidal because of their financial consequences. And it leads to a bunch of retirement people that are in an age where they can't work, losing their retirement funds. It's not an option. We have to solve this problem and we can't allow any of that. Now, we will leave that to the examiner. I've done my fair share of, messing around with things that just should be in control of other people. I think the most important job is done, which is getting rid of the executives so that they don't get in the way of the process because of other interests. So now we're here. We have a team of restructures in charge of Celsius. We have the UCC and we have a community that's willing to work day and night in order to make sure that they protect their financial interests with lots of skin in the game. We have to get our shit together because at some stage, the criminality or anything like that could come out. And if that results in destroying people's lives, we need to be ready with a much, much better plan than destroy people's lives. And so I just wanted to create topics. You may disagree with some of the ways and approaches, but after this, you as a community, go do your next space, debate these issues. But I just wanted to create a starting point so that when we are ready to implement a creditor-led recovery plan, we know what we want. We don't want to be caught like Voyager with our pants down, with someone buying us, locking in a 70% haircut at the bottom of the market, and all of our assets go into somebody else's shareholders. You deserve entitlement to all of it. You've been through the shit. You got scammed. Now let's turn that around. Let's accept our situation. And we as a community need to put together our creditor-led plan for the community, for us, by us. And remember, if anyone's saying that they've got skin in the games, just look up their account balance. Unfortunately, that situation exists. And we can see whether we can believe their agenda and whether they're thinking about what's right for the most number of people. And I just have a belief that the more we fight, the more we don't focus on equitable solutions, the more we don't consider other people's circumstances, the more likely we are not going to get the result that we want. And we end up in Chapter 7. And quite frankly, Chapter 7 is a disaster. It cannot happen, and we must do everything within our power not to destroy people's lives as a result of all this shit that's happened. So with that in mind, always remember, you're alive at the most interesting time in financial history. Some people are going to get hurt. Others are going to do really well. We as creditors, we deserve to do well out of this situation and not get hurt as a result of other people's actions. Let's do this shit and let's get